So, hello. For those of you watching, I am Analisa Trofimuk, a government reporter with the Herald and Review. Decatur Mayor Julie Moore Wolfe is joining me today to talk about the city's response to the coronavirus pandemic. We have a few questions for her, and we'll just jump right in. But first, how are you doing? How is everything going?
Pretty well, all things considered. The dog is going to be very unhappy when life gets back to normal and she doesn't have somebody with her all the time. So
Yeah.
overall, pretty good.
Good, good. All right. So, yeah, let's get started. So, this is about the time of year for the State of the City address. What would be some of the talking points in that vein now?
Well, as you can imagine, where I thought I would be going with the State of the City address, which was going to be about neighborhood and community revitalization and all the great things going on with the school district. Really, if we were doing it today, the main points would probably be about living with COVID and the new normal that we're going into, because this isn't going to go away anytime soon. Things have already changed. They probably will continue to change, and businesses are going to adapt, families are going to adapt, things are going to be different than they were before. That's not to say that it won't be okay. It's going to take everybody working on this for a recovery. But Decatur of tomorrow, and I would say post-COVID, but I think we're going to be living with this for a long time. It's just, how do we deal with this on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so I, just like everyone else, is very much aware that the situation around coronavirus changes daily. Looking back to just 2 months ago, how have things changed from your perspective? I think it was on March 13th that Governor Pritzker announced the closing of restaurants and bars. And then on March 24th, you declared the state of emergency for Decatur. What's been going through your mind since then?
Well, I don't think any of us expected it to be this bad or last this long. I mean, it's like a switch was flipped, and it wasn't like the recession before, in 10 years ago. A little bit more than that. It was slow. I mean, not terribly slow, but things happened in progression. This was almost like all at once our world changed, and we went from, okay, we've got a problem, to you're working from home tomorrow and everything's shut down and we've got a real health threat for our entire community and we have to take action. And so it's been strange. And you're right, the rules have changed. I mean, what the things that the CDC was saying in the beginning, things kept changing. It's evolving as we learn more and more about this virus. And that's okay. We can adapt to change, but it's, trying to find the consistency and how do we get through this phase and on to the next phase. And so it's been something that none of us will ever forget.
Yeah. What sort of feedback have you received from Decatur residents? I know the city pushed out a survey a few weeks ago. Has the city staff sort of kind of kept you up to date with some of those results, or what has been any sort of common threads that you've seen through that?
Well, we get a lot of input from residents anyway, survey or not survey. All of the council receives a lot of email. We try to get to all of it. There are things that are raised on social media that sometimes they're just patently false. But we do have a survey that's been on the city's website. We got really a much stronger response than I expected, maybe because people are at home looking for something else to do. But I want to say the initial week that I have a full report on was like the last week of April. And by then we'd had over 1,600 responses, which that's pretty good for a survey on a website. People are pretty mixed. At that time, and this was before the governor's executive order, the latest one that required masks and said this was going to go on longer. But it's kind of a mixed bag of people saying you need to do more. You need to, make sure that when people go into stores that they are wearing a mask. You had that side, and then you had the other side saying, come on, we've got to open this up. We can't live like this. We need to keep going. So overall, that week of the study that I have a summary for and can look at the results, it really hadn't hit really hard in our local economy yet. It's hitting businesses. It's hitting businesses every day. But the respondents of the survey, and most of those said they are not business owners. Okay. So you have that going on. The people who were really saying that they were starting to feel something, it was about worries about their rent and their mortgage. utility bills. There is relief for a lot of that. So overall, it was a good response. I did pop into like a live update of it, but I'm not sure if those numbers are counted into the first numbers, if it's being compiled or if it's just a snapshot in time. So we'll be getting you more details from the city manager's office.
Great. So what has the stream of communication been like from the Illinois Municipal League and state reps and US reps and others since the start of the pandemic?
I have not had more information in my life, I'll tell you that. No, I do serve as a vice president on the Illinois Municipal League board, and I'm very active in that organization. We get a daily update, everything from kind of a recap of the governor's daily briefing to what IDPH is putting out, to things where we are lobbying for federal money, for state money, that sort of thing. I've had a lot of contact with Senator Andy Menard, Senator Chapin Rose, regularly hear from Representative Scheer and Representative Calkins. Probably the thing that's impressed me, one of the most impressive things, is the personal outreach that the governor has been doing with mayors across the state. I do have a person that I talk to in his office when something's going on. Kind of he reaches out to all the local officials, city managers, or not city managers, the mayors, and I'm not sure if he has county board chairman too, but he is my direct contact. So it's great to hear from him, but when you get personal phone calls from the governor saying how are things going, or we need help on this, that's been fantastic. We have a group of mayors that they're all part of the Illinois Municipal League, but it's the large city mayors. And we've been really actively working together as a coalition in going to the Illinois congressional delegation saying we need help, because the initial stimulus money that came out of the federal government for cities was only for cities of 500,000 people or more. Well, there's one of those in Illinois, and then there are the rest of us. So we've been very active in giving plans to the Illinois Municipal League, through Brad Cole, who is from Macon. He's a local guy, but he runs the Illinois Municipal League. But those messages going up to the governor's office. So we feel like we've got a pretty direct link.
That's great. So I know you kind of touched on this at the beginning here, but you could have any predictions as far as like what residents can expect going forward? I know it's very difficult to predict, but maybe you could kind of touch on what's going to be discussed in the more recent future or near future for city finances, and how the Restore Illinois plan you think will go for Decatur and Macon County.
Well, let's start with finances, and they're going to be bad. If you look at our budget numbers right now and the revenue that's coming in, it doesn't show the real picture. That's mainly because a lot of money flows through the state of Illinois, so it's several months behind. It's not in real time. So the money that we expected to have in April came in. The money for May is going to show a different picture, because that's when we're going to start seeing revenues that are not coming in. And if you look at things like when the governor's order went into effect, when this broke, conventions stopped. So business travel stopped. So our hotel motel tax revenue is all but gone. Food and beverage taxes, when you shut down restaurants, it's pretty much gone. Revenue from liquor sales, because people really aren't in bars. Gaming, that's $125,000, $130,000 a month. That is, and we get a very small share of that, but that's the cash money that comes in every month. Things like from motor fuel tax, people aren't driving as much, so people aren't buying as much gas. So we're getting hit by from all directions. I've got some projections recently from the Illinois Municipal League breaking down the different state, the money that flows through the state government to us. Some of those projections, it's a 30% decrease from what we got a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So our budget wasn't really full of extra cash. We do have about 50 days of cash on hand in our cash reserves, because we've worked really hard to build those up. But that kind of money disappears in a minute. Government is, and especially city government, it's people. It's people performing services for the public. Well, we don't have a lot of places to cut. Yeah, we can postpone buying squad cars, which we did during the recession, and that put us in a world of hurt, as we didn't replace cars, and then all of a sudden all of them were bad. If you don't keep up with that kind of thing. We do have money in the water fund that we could borrow against. I don't know how we would pay it back, but that money is there for a reason. It's to purchase new equipment that is about out of life at our water treatment facility. And that's millions and millions of dollars. So yes, there is some money there. We're not going to turn off the lights tomorrow, but we are in for a lot of pain. And the county is in pretty much the same boat. So is the state of Illinois. So there isn't somebody on a white horse to ride to the rescue on this. We're going to have to figure out what we're going to do. It's probably going to be painful. Now, on a more positive note, the governor announced his Restore Illinois plan, which he did what the mayors have been asking, and probably others, that we really have more of a regional approach to reopening government, or reopening the state of Illinois.
Right.
And I think that we're in a lot better shape than if we would have been doing it as a whole, because Chicago is going to have a lot worse situation than we are down here. And so it gives us an opportunity as a region to start opening businesses and activities and that sort of thing once we hit a certain point. So that is our hope, that things are going to go well. But realistically, the most important thing we can do is very safely and cautiously allow business get back to business, because all of our tax revenues are really based on people going to work and spending money and buying things, sales tax revenue. If nobody's doing that, then there is no money coming in for state government, so we can't take care of the things that we need to take care of. I'm very concerned about what the summer is going to bring, because we've got a lot of people, and I'm not even talking lower middle class people, although they would be included as well, but middle class people who may suddenly find themselves out of work. They may be out of work now. You can float some things for a while. You can be late on this payment, late on that payment, cut out the non-essentials, if it's cable or cutting back on your phone bill or something like that, cutting the luxuries out, even things that we think are essential. But I think once we get into midsummer, we're going to have a whole round of people who've never had to ask for help before, who are struggling to feed their families, struggling because they've lost health insurance. And I will say, one of the silver linings in this, and one of the reasons I love this community so much, is we have a crisis. And so you have leadership that came together and said, okay, what do we need to do? How do we manage this? What do we do? It's the city and the county. It's both hospitals working together, not competing, but working together with Crossing Healthcare and the SIU School of Medicine and Springfield Clinic. How do we get through this and make it work? We've got, all of our emergency management type of people with the health department working to figure our way through this. And there's no playbook. We're putting the best minds we have and asking for help from our residents and ideas. We will get through this. It'll be different than we were. People talk about the new normal. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know we'll be okay.
Yeah, it's something you mentioned. I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit about the city finances. I've been talking with council members for the last few days, preparing something for the study session for Monday, where you guys are going to talk about city finances. And a lot of them have mentioned they've gone back to the voluntary furloughs that were announced, and they've said if we have to make other cuts to employees or to their own salaries, which I know is limited as serving on council. But what are your thoughts on that? They've kind of mentioned other potential cuts or reductions in pay that might have to happen.
Well, we're going to have to look at every option. Yeah. Voluntary furloughs are, the kindest way to try and cut your way out of a situation. And because it may work better for somebody. If I'm a mom and I've got 3 kids and care for the summer is in question because a lot of day camps may not be able to be in business this summer, maybe I'm better off being at home, even if it means collecting unemployment insurance. And it helps out the city at the same time and maybe saves a job for somebody that really has to have that income. We're going to have to look at every option, and it's not going to be fun. It's going to hurt. It's going to be bad. Services are going to be cut. Things are going to be slowed down. And it's not what you want to do. I mean, we're talking the things the city government provides. This is public safety. It's fire protection. It's police protection. It's roads and bridges. It's the water department and keeping safe water. Plus providing other services that we just our citizens expect on a regular basis. So it's not going to be easy. And it is, you know, some things have been thrown out, which ideas are always good because you never know what works. And, you know, it's kind of like everything's on the table, or it ought to be. One of the things that was raised was, well, why don't we just combine the police department and the sheriff's department? You can't just do that. The sheriff is an elected position. Something like that would take legislative action at the very least, and that's going to take a long time to get anything through. We need answers and we need solutions now. Even things that look like they would make a lot of sense are usually harder to achieve when you have um, taxing bodies involved, and a lot of things that are regulated by rules. So that's it makes it hard, because things that ought to make sense. One councilman said, well, we shouldn't be taking our salaries. Well, I didn't know this until I came on the council, and we had a new councilman who said, I don't want to take a salary. Apparently there's a law in Illinois where you have to. Now you could take your salary, and it's not a lot. I make $8,000 a year from the city. Council makes $4,000. You can take that $4,000 and donate it to Northeast Community Fund or another entity that you feel can do the most good. But there's something in Illinois law that doesn't allow you to just say, no, you can't take a salary.
That is interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize. Um, I did want to touch on one more thing. So what can people do to actually, I'm sorry, I have two more questions. What
Okay.
what do you think people can do to sort of help um, move the county and Decatur along into the next phases? I know that part of the Restore Illinois plan is that you can't progress forward. There's like requirements to progress forward through the phases.
Well, and the other thing is you can go backwards. You know, if we
Yeah.
opened up, we could just say, you know, we're going to defy the governor's order. We're going to open everything. And if we did that across the central region, or even, you know, in a couple of cities, let's say Decatur and Springfield did it, our numbers could spike really badly, and we could move backwards, which we don't want to do. So the number one thing, and it's been the number one thing since we began, and that is public health, and doing everything we can to keep this from spreading to other people. Nobody wants to wear a mask. I don't want to wear a mask, and we're not going to have cops at every storefront, you know, to arrest people that don't do it. All right, that's just, it's not even realistic. But wearing a mask can stop you from infecting somebody else. And I've heard a lot of people yelling about their constitutional rights. I haven't found anything in the Constitution about telling people they have to wear masks or can't wear masks, or it's your right not to wear a mask. Frankly, if I own a business and I'm worried about my employees and my customers, and I want you to wear a mask coming into my business, then you're going to wear a mask or you're not coming in. And that's my right as a business owner to do that. If we can continue the social distancing, wearing masks, washing our hands. I mean, washing your hands, how simple is that? Wash your hands, stay away from each other. Don't be tempted as the weather gets great to have a party. You can't, because even though everybody at that party may feel fine and be great, you can be carrying it. You know, if you think about it, if you go to your doctor's office or you go into one of the hospitals because you're going to have a test run, there's usually a sign that says, if you have a cough, wear a mask. That's not for you. It is for the people around you. And if
Right.
you've got allergies and you're coughing and you're also a carrier, or you're sneezing, this stuff lives on surfaces. And so it's about other people who might not be as strong as you, might not be as healthy as you, and they're going to get this and they could die. And it sets us back. I want our businesses open. I want them thriving. That is how government gets better. Government gets better. We restore services when our businesses are working and our people are employed, and everybody can pay for their taxes and go out to dinner and buy a new car. That's the reality. So we've got to be in this together. This isn't going to be forever. It's going to be for a long time. And we're probably going to become a culture that wears masks more often than we don't. And maybe a year from now, maybe 6 months from now, we won't need to. Right now we do. So I need to implore people to just do this. It's not this hard. It's not like we're saying you need to pick up a gun, get on a plane, go to a foreign country you didn't even know where it was on the map, and fight a war for people you don't know. You're fighting the war for people you do know. They're your neighbors, they're your family, your friends.
No, that's an excellent point. My last question, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping
No,
all
that's
over the
okay.
place. Your responses have made me think of more questions. And some of these we've kind of talked about previously, but how might be impact of COVID on the city's budget and like affect projects that are already in the works? I know federal and state grants have specific restrictions, I guess, yeah, restrictions on how the money can be used. I'm thinking like a Brush College Road or like demolishing some of the vacant properties. How will the impact of COVID-19 be on those projects?
Well, as you mentioned, when we get a grant or we get funding from a specific source, it's for a reason generally. Some funds are not, but specifically, if we have a grant that is to pave certain roads, highways, those are going to go on as scheduled. In fact, I've been receiving notices from IDOT of projects that are about to begin. Thankfully, those are going to begin, and that keeps people working. It's infrastructure. It's a good thing. Other things that are not specific in the general fund, for example, we were set to vote on $600,000 worth of new squad cars.
Right.
Those probably won't get purchased right now. I do worry about depleting funds that are meant for other things, but we may not have a choice. We're probably going to have to do a mixture of things. But the reality of it is, if we don't change anything as far as what we've planned to spend, and we take the money that we have set aside, it's going to be gone. And the money we set aside to do things like buy the new equipment for the water treatment plant, that money will be gone if we don't make some adjustments. It'll be gone, and then we won't have money to fix upgrade the water treatment facility. And water's really important, and we also won't have made any progress. So we're going to have to make cuts. We're probably going to have to make a lot of cuts. And some of the numbers that I've seen, the projections, are frightening. It's not just a couple $1,000,000. It's millions of dollars that we could be short. And that's not something you can cut your way out of very easily. And it's not like you can turn around and tax everybody. You can't do it. So we're going to have to get creative. Everything's got to be on the table. But funds that have rules that are specific grants have to go to those purposes. It's not like your family budget where you have so much to spend a month. And even though this was supposed to go into the furniture account and this was in the vacation account, government money is different.
Right. And similarly, same with like tax revenue or tax dollars have to go towards specific. I think the city manager spoke about that at the most recent meeting, or maybe him and I spoke about it. I can't quite remember. But I do want to mention City of Decatur website has multiple resources. I think you guys have your own like COVID-19 tab, and it has everything from how the city's trying to help business owners establish even just like pickup lanes, and you guys have a lot of resources on your website also for people who are unemployed. There was one other thing I wanted to mention as well, and then the surveys on there too.
And if you look at the IDPH website, it shows you where we are as far as moving from one step in the process to the next one. So it shows you exactly where we are with the resources that we've got on hand, that we have to hit certain metrics. And you have to hold those metrics for a couple of weeks to be able to move into the next step. So it gives people at least a little bit of a scorecard to go by, to look at. For business owners, if you go to the Decatur Chamber website or the EDC website, they've got resources for businesses to help them, because our businesses are struggling. There are businesses that aren't going to make it. Some have already failed. They've quit. But we want to keep as many going as we possibly can. And we're going to do everything we can to help that be healthy.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add or anything I missed?
I don't think so. I'm as anxious as everybody else to get life back to some sort of normal. I miss seeing people. Council meetings are weird, even though we have, the technology to be able to see most of the faces. It's not the same as being there in person. And for those of us who are doing a lot of work from home and are used to being out in public a lot, it's hard. And when you do get the chance to go out in public, I'm a hugger. It's really weird to have to be like, back off. We can't, you just, here's an elbow. And it's a really strange time in our lives, and maybe we'll all write great books about it someday.
Yeah, maybe. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.